All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. With the school board, June 1st. Bills and manifests are going around. Our first order of business tonight is a fresh picks discussion. I understand we have some representatives here. I think that's when the board members want to ask some questions. So, I don't know, is there something, any prepared remarks you have? Or?
No, we don't have any prepared remarks.
Okay.
We're told there were some questions, so we're here to answer. My name is Chris Farrell. I'm the Director of Operations for Fresh Fix Cafe. Karen Rainey is the District Manager that covers this.
Thank you.
How do you guys see things overall going with Northwood School?
With the food service program here?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, not as good as we would like, to be completely honest. When we first came in, we had some specific ideas in mind of things that we wanted to change and improve. And I will admit that a good portion of the way into the year, a few months into the year, we hadn't really achieved what we wanted to achieve. So Karen began working with the on-site staff a little more closely to implement some of that change. And we've been able to implement some with the staff that we've had this year. We're still not really where we want to be with the changes we want to make.
Can you be more specific in the changes that you wanted to see or to make?
Sure.
I'm assuming they're improvements?
Yes, yep. So why don't you talk about some of the stuff that we have done and kind of get into what and you want to come to the microphone?
Yeah, sorry. So some of the things that we wanted to do and have done are adding additional options for the middle school age kids. So, you know, not just giving them the one hot lunch choice or the salad or the deli, but also offering them some, maybe a hamburger or a hot sandwich or pizza more than once a week, things that they really like. So to increase their choices, as well as offering some additional a la carte items. So we've added some beverages, we've added some different fruits, and then some snacks as well.
And for some of the stuff that we'd still like to get to more of that we haven't done yet, in terms of taste test events, we've done a few. We haven't done it as frequently as we would like. Some of the action station type of events that we do, and introducing some more product lines like our lunchbox line, which they haven't seen here yet, right? But it's basically like a 4-compartment container, and really the concept behind it is capture those kids that love the Lunchables but actually give them real food. So our lunch boxes have like fresh grapes, fresh strawberries, yogurt, and graham crackers to dip in and that kind of stuff. And we haven't been able to introduce those type of lines here yet either.
So hearing, sorry if anybody else jump in, but hearing that you wanted to, increase for the middle schoolers, the feedback that we've been getting is that you're taking away from the younger kids, like the whole a la carte has not been offered to them, the fresh vegetables, the fresh fruits, that's being covered. And that's a huge concern for me.
And I will let you speak to that.
I will speak to, there was, after some staffing changes, we had to do something to speed up because there were continued concerns about the younger kids, the younger grades. It's just one class, that K and first and second grade, I believe, that they just were not getting through the line quick enough. That they were sticking at that salad bar unit and they were not being able to make choices to get them through and not having enough time to eat. So what we do is we cut those things up for them so it's quick and easy for them to put on the tray. Nothing was taken away from them, it's just, it's presented differently.
So they have the choice still of those fruits and vegetables.
Correct.
It's just not in the tray.
It's just not in the salad bar unit. It's on the line, all cupped up, so that they can just take it quickly and get them through the line quicker. Yeah.
And that was done at the request of the
the
school because
school.
they felt that the kids were taking too long with all the presentation we were doing.
So another concern that was brought up is with the à la carte, the juices and the chips and the things like that. Because of the staffing changes, those are now, instead of they were just there and kids could take them, they're now being pointed out to the kids and saying, don't you want these things? And that's not right for, grown-ups to be doing that for kids, period.
No, I think the concern is some of the kids are pretty young, right? So they're very susceptible to, being talked into something. So, yeah.
I've been here with the two staff that are filling in quite a bit, when they first started, of course, and when I was out. And I did not see any of that. When a child comes up to the register, I mean, I know specifically when I was running the register the 2 days, you want to point out, oh, you're getting chips today, or oh, you're getting a beverage today, to make sure that I see them and can check their account, but not recommending, oh, do you want this today? So maybe just things are being misheard. I don't see it being pushed at all.
But you're not here every day.
Correct. Yep.
And quite honestly, so the staff that has been covering the program has been with us for years. The type of activity you're talking about is not part of their training. I've never heard of issues with that with this staff or any of our staff anywhere else. Our staff is trained to encourage kids to take fruits and vegetables to make sure we can get that reimbursable meal. Like Kara said, they are trained to point out that stuff on the tray to make sure they have money on their account, that kind of stuff. But there is nothing in our system training staff members to encourage kids to buy those à la carte items.
Well, and I'm
It
not
actually-
saying it's part of their training, I'm
It-
just
but it's
saying that was
actually-
a concern that was brought forward to us as a board.
Okay. Well, we can
yeah.
speak to them directly about it. I think it's more misinterpretation.
did.
You already did?
I did speak to them because I spoke to Jocelyn, had brought it up to me right away, and I did speak to both of those staff members about it, and just reiterated that that's not something that we would promote at all.
Thank
And-
you.
And you have to remember too that when it comes to sales, there's nothing in it for cafe services. We
Well,
don't
and
make
that's not
money
my
off.
concern. My
Right.
concern is that these are young kids
Oh, yeah.
being with chips and, I know that they meet the FDA-approved guidelines and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But these are things that we've been keeping out of our school for a long time, that we've gone through our, not health committee, what's the committee?
Wellness.
Wellness committee, and they have concerns about these foods being brought into the school because the program that we had before worked very hard to get them out of the school, and now they're being brought back in, even if they do meet the FDA. And then to hear that they're being almost pushed on kids is a concern as a parent.
Right, and I understand that, and I think, like I said, that part of them being pushed on kids is more miscommunication than anything else. In terms of the concerns of the products being sold in the building, and I did meet with the Wellness Committee early in the year to discuss exactly that. When we came in last year and talked about bringing our programs in, these were the type of programs we talked about bringing in. The additional choices, à la carte items, all of that kind of stuff. That was part of our proposal, that was right in our proposal binder. And if it's not the program you want, we can absolutely do that. It just needs to come that direction, needs to come from the school board. We need to have that conversation of, we want to have less à la carte choices, less of this type of stuff, less of that type of stuff. It's my job to analyze any financial impact, bring that back to you, and say, okay, we can absolutely do this, this is what your program would look like. A great example of this is a school district that I work with in Vermont, who came to us a couple years ago and said, the USDA guidelines are not even close to as far as we want to go. We want to reduce sugar. We want to increase omega fatty acids in the foods the kids eat. We want no processed meats, and this whole long list of stuff that they wanted to do. So we put together a list of what they wanted to do. We did a financial analysis on it. The program typically had a surplus of about $5,000 a year. We forecast with the changes they wanted, it would be a $35,000 subsidy. They agreed to that. We're going to come in probably at about a $25,000 subsidy. We've been able to control it pretty well. But that's the kind of process we want to go through. So it really, the way the process works, and I explained this to the Wellness Committee, is if that's what the community wants, just give us specifics about what you do and don't want to see. We'll put the program together to look like that, bring it to the school board for you guys to make that decision, and then we will do what the community's decision is to do with the food service program.
Well, and my understanding too was that you did meet once with the wellness committee, and then all of these concerns were brought up later. And I don't know.
Actually, these specific concerns were brought up when I went to the Wellness Committee. That's what they asked me to go there and talk to them about.
Okay, so I guess a continued, meeting or process with the wellness committee would be nice also, because that sounded like what the board wanted last time, is for them to meet with the wellness committee also, and
Yeah, well,
that
I
you
mean,
can bring back something once you're meeting with them.
Well, or the wellness committee should come up with a plan, bring it to the board, and if we have to do changes, we can talk.
But he has to bring forward those changes to us, and if there's any cost in it.
No, that's,
So
that's
that's
true.
why
We
if
get
they
some
meet
costing information.
as one, if the wellness committee meets with them to come up with what they were thinking. Those were my concerns. Did you guys have any?
My turn?
Go for it.
So I've had lunch 3 times since our last meeting 2 weeks ago. Based on the first lunch, I came in on Friday after our meeting 2 weeks ago, and it was pizza. I wasn't at all concerned about the quality of the food. I sat with some kids. They seemed to eat the pizza just fine. From that, I'm awfully glad I came back twice again, and I'm really happy I came in today. From that first meeting, my concerns were during the different groups that come in. So I stayed 3 groups, I think, all 3 times. The first meeting, the 2 employees of yours did as close to absolutely nothing in that 5 or 6 or 7 minutes between one group leaving and one group coming, that it disturbed me. So underneath the table where they drop off their food was food on the floor, knives and forks. Once in a while, I don't like computers and phones and all that crap, but once in a while I wished I knew how to run my my camera on my phone. But so there was that concern. There was a concern that the salad bar, I think you call it, had 4 things. It had some mangy lettuce, it had some cucumbers, carrots, and pears. That's it. It wasn't very appetizing, but I tried some anyway. Tried the pizza, and I went to get salad dressing, and of the 5 or 6 containers of salad dressing, I had to go through 3 or 4 before I found one with anything in it. And again, I think what disturbed me most was between shifts, nobody did anything about any of that, which I found disturbing. The second time I went in was for the shepherd's pie, and I didn't have any problem with it. I went today, and I know that staffing is an issue everywhere. I couldn't find one thing to bitch about today. The place was neat, it was clean, things were filled. Viola and crew were busy I stayed through 2 different changeovers. I talked to some kids. My cheeseburger was just fine. I mean, I wouldn't give you $100 for it, but it really was nothing wrong with it. And the salad bar was, in the second 2 times, was a complete changeover. I mean, instead of 4 iffy, I had 6 or 7 good choices, from tomatoes and everything that I would expect to find on a school salad bar. So I'm only saying, in what I saw over the last 2 weeks, I sincerely believe the difference was personnel. And that's all I have to say about the whole thing.
Okay.
Overall, what I saw, I'm happy we have a contract with you and such. But I just think that personnel, the right personnel at the right time makes an incredible difference. And yes, I know that Vi was there today and she knows what she's doing and it was just wonderful. I mean, everything. And you could see the kids were happier, the staff in the lunchroom was happier and things just moved along just fine. I didn't see any problem with lines that I had been told about. And different things, based on today, I'm tickled to death. The first time, I was ready to shoot you, but things happen, and I understand that.
Right.
But that's why we have to, as management, you have to stay on top of it, and I appreciate that. But I don't think you changed anything for Tim Jandeber. I just think today, things were moving along just fine.
Yep, and I don't know too, I can only speculate that first time if it was two new crew members you weren't familiar with. It could have been right around that time that we had an emergency where
And I
Vi
think it
left
was,
unexpectedly.
yes, I think it was.
And that,
And I appreciate that, stuff happens, I understand. But I'll tell you, based on today, I couldn't be more pleased.
that's good.
So I've eaten lunch there 3 times myself in the past 2 weeks. And I saw the same exact thing. I did see a backup in the line and it took a while for kids to get food. One time the corn was burnt. And then the other 2 times it was different personnel. And let me go back to the first time though. That first time, whoever the personnel was there, I saw Vi running all over the place like she was trying to cover for everybody. She was out back, she was out front, she was out back, she was out front. And then the second time, it was different personnel and everything was running smoothly. There was more items out in the car. It was different. So I've got the same experience as Tim has. So I don't know if there was a transition with new personnel or maybe that, but I know Vi was there all 3 times. So, but the food's good too. I had the tacos. And only thing I don't like about the tacos, the wrap falls apart.
That
So-
would be your wonderful whole week, yes.
Yeah, so, that was very interesting as I picked it up
Actually,
and
they're probably commodities too, right?
Commodities
Yeah.
whole week.
yeah,
So that would be your lovely government donated whole week
yeah,
tortilla.
so, yeah, it's definitely very interesting. It tastes fine, but it's very not.
Yeah, just make a
But,
salad out of it.
And the pizza was good, and I had tacos twice. I had meat tacos and chicken tacos, so they're delicious.
Thank you for the
And
update,
over the past couple of weeks, we have had one staff member that we brought from another district that has been here consistently. And then there was a second one that filled in, like we said, when we had that emergency, where we had to get somebody in quickly to cover. Might have been, was it one person for the whole coverage, or was it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it could have been that day. I don't know, but it just there was just this one day where it was like, what is going on? It was pizza day, and the pizza wasn't ready, and I couldn't really see whether I couldn't tell where the staff was. I was looking for them, so maybe they were waiting on the pizza. I don't know. And then there was just no items out in the a la carte. So
Yep.
What do you have for, what are you supposed to have for staff?
So I'm glad you asked that because I was just about to get into it. So we started the year with a certain staffing level that was very similar to the staffing level you had in the past. One of the things that we realized fairly quickly into the year, one, we had, been a little bit amiss in not being as proactive about getting our programs in as we should. But also, two, we realized that the population of the building had gone down about 5-6%. But more importantly, the free and reduced enrollment had gone down about 25%. That has a big impact on your participation. Students who qualify for meal benefits, historically, in any district you go to, are your best customers in the food service program. So we continued on a while with the staffing
Could
level.
you just stop there?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry. So I can keep track. So what you just said, our free and reduced has gone down 20-some%, which has impacted the overall program. So I can certainly think back a principal or two ago that made a very good conscientious effort to make sure that all of the kids who were entitled to free and reduced lunch their parents were contacted, and a very good effort was made to make sure that they understood that that was available. Have we collectively fallen down on that?
I can't honestly tell you that the principal, the current principal has made phone calls. I can't tell you that.
I don't necessarily mean her, I just mean we, all of us.
Administration in general.
I mean, I don't believe we
So-
have less children who have or should have access to free and reduced lunch. I personally do not believe we have less of those today than we had 2 or 3 years ago. So that is something that seems to me that maybe we should look at collectively and try to figure out what to do about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to go hungry,
Mm-hmm.
especially, for lunch. So that's an interesting statement. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to
and it's
interrupt,
fine.
but, I
And
mean,
yeah,
that's a
it's-
big deal right there.
It really is. For the reasons you talked about, for the financial reasons I talked about in general.
Okay.
It really is. And also too, I mean, it affects things like your E-rate for your utilities and your Title I
Yep,
funding and
yep.
all of that. So yeah, and I don't know if any outreach efforts have been made to get more people to enroll. All I do know is that as of March 2016, when we wrote this bid, there were 25% more kids with paperwork on file qualifying for benefits than we saw at the beginning of the school year. And
More
even
or
up until
less?
now,
More before.
more before.
More before, okay.
More
Yes,
before.
so 25% less, sorry. So anyway, so back to the staffing discussion. So we realized into the school year that, with the slight decrease in enrollment, I mean, went from anywhere from 402, 408 last year to about 377 by October. But that increase in kids that qualified for meal benefit assistance, we were not going to be generating the kind of revenue we thought we were going to generate. Which is when we started having discussions with Vi and the crew about things that we might have to do to control expenses. Probably late winter, we spoke to Vi about changing the staffing structure to make her more of a chef manager with more production responsibilities and reduce the responsibilities of the 2 helpers to be more appropriate with a lower wage.
But wait there again.
Mhm.
So I've been into your lunch program 3 times, and all 3 times there were only 2 people.
Right.
Okay, so that's your staffing level?
We're
now?
getting there.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Okay. So, when we brought this idea to Vi, she came back with the idea of trying to do it with just 2 people, 2 stronger people. I'm sorry, but she did. That's, when we had this discussion with her, that's what she wanted to try. We talked through it. We said, okay, we agree to give it a try, and we did. What we found after a couple months of trying it was that, like we talked about, the progress we wanted to make on doing more taste tests, introducing lunch boxes, all of that kind of stuff, was not really viable with that type of staffing structure. Which is why it's written into the budget next year, and our plan is to get back to that 3-person staff with 1 chef manager who's responsible for administrative duties and the culinary part, and 2 helpers.
And that's reflected in your budget?
Yes.
Your
Yeah.
bid that you've given us?
Yep, the budget for next year, that is reflected with that staffing level.
I-
And if you compare the 2 budgets from the one for this year and the one for next year, you'll see that the revenues have decreased significantly for the one for next year, more in line with what we're actually seeing. And that the percentage of revenues that is spent on expenses for labor is about the same. We planned 49% expense for labor this year, it's about 48 and some change next year. Dollar-wise, there's a big difference, because there's a big difference in the revenues.
How are your revenues of non-students? Are they up or down?
That's a question I can't answer off the top of my head.
I
you know?
can't answer that off.
I'm just wondering, today, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to talk to any of the staff, the teachers, et cetera. The last 2 times I was, and such, So I'm just kind of curious, and I didn't get any, you're not the Ritz, and they didn't think that you were much worse. I think the first time I came in just kind of colored my whole thing, and I admit that, you know, and I think that was a staffing issue. Vi was not here that day. There was a male and a female. And, I mean, there was no effort that day, so I'll leave it at that. So, I would be curious, do you have those records? Whether the staff are using your lunch, eating at your lunch program more or less as the years gone by?
We have those records, I don't have them with me.
Okay. I'd just be kind of interested if you'd shoot Dr. Godomsky an email and he could send it out to us.
Absolutely.
That'd be just, you know, kind of curious. Like I say, today's lunch was just fine. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? I just have one question as to, with the USDA guidelines changing at the federal level recently, how do you see that impacting the food service, or if at all? I mean, what?
So, as much hype as the media likes to make out of it, as of right now, virtually nothing has changed. Really, the only thing we know for sure for next year is that we'll be able to serve 1% chocolate milk instead of skim chocolate milk. They did put a hold on the sodium restrictions, so that's pretty much going to stay the same as it is right now. And then in terms of whole grain, if you read the proclamation that Secretary Perdue put out, he directed the USDA to explore ways to add flexibility to the whole grain requirement. He has given them the entire 17-18 school year to come up with ways to add flexibility to the whole grain requirement. In that time, he's going to keep in place the hardship waiver for whole grains. For a school district to get a hardship waiver for the whole grains, they have to approach the state, who is not really keen on giving out any of these waivers. And they have to thoroughly document that serving whole grains has been a financial impact on their program. In other words, very hard to get away with. So really the only thing we know of for sure right now is that we're going to be allowed to serve 1% chocolate milk rather than skim milk, and that's really kind of driven by the dairies. You know, right now, the dairies only offer skim chocolate milk, and they don't offer 1% chocolate milk. Next year, they may offer both. They may just offer 1%. I don't know. And then we're hoping sometime in school year 17-18, there will be some relief on the whole grain requirement. Because there is some good progress being made on whole grain products in terms of things that we've had kids had a hard time with kids accepting, like the pastas, some of the breads. Crackers has been one of the biggest challenges. That's part of our lunchbox program, and finding ones that the kids will actually like that don't cost a fortune are a little tough. But there's been a lot of progress on some of that stuff. But then there's some of the other stuff like brown rice and muffins that kids just don't want the whole grain version of that stuff. So we're hoping to see some relief. At least 80% whole grain rather than 100%, which is currently before Congress and hasn't been voted on in 2 years. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Any other questions?
I don't have another question. I have another statement, though. Our last meeting was kind of interesting, and I don't want to go through it. There's a lot of factions in any small town that have feelings about this and feelings about that. If I came out of anything from that meeting that I would like to see improved, it would be communications. There was a couple of statements during the meeting that maybe some people were having a hard time communicating with y'all and stuff like that. I just think communications between you and us, most of which has to go through Dr. Godomsky, but I really would like to see us have more communications and not go a whole year without seeing you and being able to have this kind of a conversation. I just think that's very important because we're all in it together. I think just about every one of us went with you on purpose, for good reasons, and we would like to continue that. But there's always somebody that's not gonna be as happy, and we just need to be, very communicable with each other and know ahead of time if we can, if there's a bump in the road.
Yep. I absolutely agree, and I will actually give you an example of a school district not too far from here with some similar kind of stuff. When we first went into Wakefield, some people had some concerns. There was concerns about staffing changes, concerns about this, concerns about that. It didn't take us full year. We finally got on a regular basis where every 2 or 3 months, we were on the school board agenda.
That would be really nice.
We were brought in, we would give an update on what we had done, we would take any questions and concerns, we would go back, and then at the next meeting, 2 or 3 months later, we would say, okay, last time we were here, you brought this up, this is what we've done to address it. We would be more than happy to do that here as well.
I think that would be a really good thing to put on our list at the back of the packet, to see them.
Yeah, on our calendar or something
Calendar,
like
yeah,
that.
that we see them more often so that we can have this kind of a conversation.
How about twice a month?
I live close, that's fine.
Yeah, I do too, and that's fine. And if we're gonna start showing up that much, you're gonna want us to bring food every time.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna figure out the details of that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Did you have a question?
I just wanted to relay 2 other concerns, and then I've got one question. There was a concern that was brought forward that about portion size, especially for some of our older kids, that they felt that they were still hungry when they got done. And the other concern was on the last lunch of the day. The kids sign up for certain things in the morning, and then by the last lunch, some of the popular choices are gone.
Okay.
So that was a concern that I wanted to bring
Okay,
forward to you.
so I'm gonna give the higher level answer on your first concern, and then I'll let Kara talk about both concerns. In general, with the lunch program, and, we hear it somewhat at that middle school level, but especially at the high school level, we do get a lot of complaints about portion sizes. And especially at the high school level, you can really see what the USDA tried to do. Because the way the USDA structured their reimbursable meal is that at the high school level, we're required to serve a 2-ounce portion of meat, which is like half a deck of cards, 2 servings of grain, 8 ounces of milk, a cup of fruit, and a cup of vegetable. So if you take a cup of fruit and a cup of vegetable with the rest of your meal, it's a fairly sizable meal. That's not typical. You don't see a lot of people, especially a lot of kids, doing that.
Right.
The USDA did that specifically, and I spoke to a USDA rep when these regulations first came out, because they were talking about when they were looking at it, consumption of everything, fat, salt, sugar was all going through the roof. If you looked 20 years on, fruits and vegetables was low. So the guidelines were written to push kids towards more fruits and vegetables. And that's kind of the higher level overview of it. I'll let Karis talk specifically about portion size in here and choices at last lunch and that kind of stuff.
So specifically about portion size, I know that there specifically pizza was a concern because the portion size of the slice of pizza or the square, depending on which one we're doing, is definitely smaller than what they had last year. But we're following the requirements that we're supposed to be. But they are not restricted to how much fruit, vegetable, even if they want additional starch sometimes, or grain, they can have that. All I can say is that we're following those guidelines. The older kids is a little bit larger of a cut than the elementary school kids for a pizza or other things.
Right.
And then as far as running out on that last meal, we have struggled this year with getting all of the teachers to submit their counts for the day. And some kids just change their mind when they come through. So that's something that I can work with the team better to have more product available. I know that Vi tries to count by the sheets and put out only what those kids ordered, but the style of service that we have, which is more of a self-service, they sometimes do take
Right.
a yogurt versus a hot meal that they signed up for. So.
And Kara brought up a good point too with, just talking about the different sizes and the pizza and that kind of stuff. One of the things I didn't get up to with the higher level in terms of the regulations is the calorie restrictions. At the high school level, the calorie restrictions are 850 calories for a meal, which is perfectly fine for a normal kid. Middle school, it's a little bit lower, but when you get a kid who's on the football team or on the track team or all of that, that's not enough calories.
The question I have is, they've got your proposal in the binder for tonight. And after that was submitted, the board raised the lunch prices from $2.30 to $2.35, so it went up 5 cents. Is that going to change the proposal, the cost proposal that you submitted?
Do you have, so that happened after that price proposal was submitted?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I would think it would have a little bit of an impact. I would have to run that number to see, and I don't have the sheet on here where we're projecting the free lunch count. I'm sorry, full plate lunch count. So, yeah, it would have a little bit of an impact with, when you're talking about 5 cents on the full pay lunch only, it's gonna be a small impact, but it will have a little bit of an impact, yes.
I have just one more question. And this may have only happened once, I don't know, it just happened that my son was going to have hot lunch one day, and it wasn't announced until he walked into the cafeteria that the lunch had changed that day. So he did not eat lunch because he's picky, he looked at the calendar, and he was going to eat that day. If he had known earlier, I happened to be off, or his grandmother could have brought something for him, so he ate nothing that day. Is that a regular practice that you don't announce it until they walk into the
No.
cafeteria?
No, and
Okay.
I would assume it probably happened recently.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
And I apologize for
No,
that.
that's okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a regular practice.
No,
that-
absolutely
So,
not. That's,
we understand, especially little guys, when
Yeah.
they come in and it's not what's on the menu, it's.
Okay.
she's got little guys, mine just made high school, we are well aware of how that all works.
I did also have one more question. You said that, you brought up the school in Vermont, and they wanted all of this to go further than most schools do on healthy eating, I guess, if
Yep.
they would call it that, I wouldn't. So the question, I asked the question of the board, or Dr. Godowski, last meeting, if we decided we wanted a slightly better lunch, that was going to mean that maybe instead of losing $3,800, we were gonna lose $8,800. That could be done?
Absolutely,
Okay, so you're that flexible?
absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
because, I mean, we need to balance what the kids want, the parents want, you want, and we want somehow, and that's, I know, very, very difficult. Having been on the board for quite some time, there were years when we lost $70,000, so
Right.
3,800 doesn't look like much anymore.
Right.
So that's, right, all right, so we'll see how it goes, but
When
that's
you
something.
say better, though, you don't mean,
So,
like,
Let's not
they
get
still
into
have to follow the USDA
right, we have to follow the
guidelines.
guidelines.
True,
And let me
but-
jump right in right there, hold on.
I'm just like,
So- So in a case like that, and we've done this in several places, the first step in that would be that we would get the stakeholders together, wellness committee, you guys, whoever's interested, and have you define better.
I
Because
understand.
there's a lot of definitions of better.
Mine
Then we would take-
mine is palatable,
Right.
more palatable,
Yeah.
so.
Then we would take that definition of better, take a look at what we would need to do that, and estimate a financial impact. And there was actually another Vermont school that I loved working with this principal because she was no nonsense. And she said, I want food like Grandma used to make. I said, okay, we can do that. We've forecasted, I think it was like a $7,000 or $8,000 extra subsidy, and wound up not even using it. We wound up still coming in on budget from what we had been doing. So yeah, I mean, those kind of options we will definitely work with. It's just, you got to give us a clear idea of what better is or what healthier is, and then we take it from there.
Most things in life are a compromise.
Any other
Thank you
questions?
for coming in.
Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you very much for
Appreciate it.
having us.
Thank you.
Look
Happy to
forward
be here,
having you
and
back.
please, really think about putting us on the schedule on a regular basis. We'd love to have that communication going.
Would be a
Thank
good
you.
time after the school year starts to have you back.
Kind of driven by your agenda, but I would say maybe, in light of what's going on, maybe that very first meeting when you come back, or meeting right before you come back, if you gather more feedback, gather more ideas of what you want to see with the program next year, get us early in the year, so we can start off the year, work on that stuff, come back to you, report on what we've done, and you can give us any other feedback on, that was kind of the way we wanted you to go, but not far enough, or now we're hearing this, or whatever. Okay?
Thank you.
Great,
Thanks a lot.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have on the agenda is a non-public session, but I don't think we have any need for that
Not to start, no.
to start off with. I think we might do that after. So we're going to open it up for public comment at this time.
I go? Go ahead, Mary. You go first.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Thanks.
Mary,
So-
can you have a copy? Do you have an extra one or
I
not?
don't. Well,
You can hand it off to her as I speak. Let's see if I can.
Last year, there was so much controversy during the budget process, and I did what I could at the time to try to follow what was happening, try to come to my own conclusions about the figures that were so much a subject of conversation at that time. And one of the figures, I did look very closely at the budget figures. There are a lot of them, of course, and I know how challenging it is to look at all of those numbers and sort through everything carefully. But it is possible to take a good look at them, and some things did leap out at me as I did that, and the subject of the food service contract, as a matter of fact, was one of those things. So I thought, tonight maybe it's a good time to talk about that. You did talk about it last time, but I don't think the cost of the contract was ever recorded in the minutes. And the numbers that I do have are from the budget figures during the budget process, the packet that we had at the school district meeting and so forth. And the amount budgeted for the food service in the proposed operating budget was $143,000. There was a reference made to a $133,000 figure in those budget documents as well. But my question is really about the default budget and the default budgeting process here on this score. The figure for the contract in the default budget was $174,000. Now I'm rounding to the nearest thousand because I think it makes it really easier to talk about these things and think about them. The nearest thousand, when we're talking about 174,000, is more informative than any other more precise number. Now, so I understand that at the time the default budget and the proposed new operating budget were being developed last fall and winter, you didn't have a firm cost figure for the food service. But that doesn't really explain why the default budget line would be $31,000 more than the proposed operating budget number. And if you look at that, I just copied the pages from the school board approved budget. And if you look at the back of that first page, the contracted services number is $143,000, that's highlighted. And then the next page is the default budget page, and the back of that page, the contracted food service number is $174,000, that's highlighted there.
Sorry to cut you off, if you
Yeah.
can finish up.
Sure.
Pretty
Okay. So in addition to that number being so different, there was no contract ever approved. We talked about that. I think I talked about that in a couple of different places. So the default really should have been to the actual figure in the current operating budget for this year, which was $33,000 less than the total that you came up with on the food service line in the default budget. So my questions are, on what basis was the default budget for the contracted food service set at $31,000 more than the proposed new operating budget, which is what we wound up getting approved? And it did cause the default budget, it was part of what caused the default budget to be more than the proposed new operating budget. And on what basis did the board include an unapproved contract obligation in the default budget in the first place? I think there was an error made. That's the impression that I come away with. And I'm just going to ask the board to please address those questions in some formal way. Like, I'd really like to see it on an agenda. And the question of an error having been made so that the nature of the problem can be clarified and so that, you know, a problem like that can be averted.
All right, thank you.
In the future.
Anyone else?
Obviously, I'm not real pleased about the whole presentations, but I do have a few specific comments. At the last meeting, the discussion had mentioned when you guys were figuring out what you were going to be changing lunch prices to, that Stratford was breaking even. They, at least they weren't in the red. Whether they were over, you know, made money or not, I don't know. The thought occurred to me after some thinking and discussion that a few years back, there was a big push by certain members of the school board to take all of the associated costs with high school out of the operating budget and have them set up separately. And the same thing was done with the food service program. So my question is perhaps part of the difference between why Stratford's program seems to be in the black and everybody else is in the red is because things such as salaries, insurances, new equipment, cost of repairs of equipment, those things that had traditionally been in the overall operating budget under building maintenance and salaries and whatever, being pushed into the food service budget is additional monies that have to be covered by food. And if that's the case, I don't know that that's appropriate in determining whether or not the food program is losing money or breaking even. And I would ask that perhaps the school board take a look at that, just to see if I'm completely off or if that's a valid point. I don't recall, now I've been on the budget committee for many years, as all of you know, and I honestly cannot recall a year, and perhaps Tim can enlighten me at some point in the future, of a year where the food program lost $70,000. Unless that was the first year where, excuse me, some of these additional items were popped into the food service program. I simply do not recall that big a loss. 25 to 30 that you would cover, yes. 70, no, I don't recall that. But listening to the presentation, it seems that staffing issues seem to be fairly common. He mentioned Wakefield had some staffing issue concerns. Obviously, we do. That seems pretty obvious. I would suggest that this board meet with the staff that was working with this company and is no longer, and hear from the people who are actually working with the program to find out what is miscommunication or is fact. Based on some information I have, which I cannot go into, I think you will be very much surprised at what former staff have to say about how this operation works. And I, again, would challenge you to get all the information you can, and that would be a big piece of it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other public comment? We're good. Any board member like to take this opportunity for public comment?
We're going to discuss the contract tonight?
Yes.
You know, I just want to mention, yes, I do have
Okay.
a comment.
Go for it.
I'm guessing maybe 5 years ago, there was an awful lot of discussion about the food service program in our town, amongst our staff and amongst the school board. I remember it vividly. We had at the time at being a business administrator, a quite excellent business administrator, who we, the school board, gave him a job of looking into our program, also looking into Stratford program, because they have gone years and years and been able to break even. And there are reasons why. And he came back, and I'm sure it's a matter of record. I'm sure I could go through my filing cabinet and find it in about 3 years. Because the school board just generates a ton of paperwork. But there were definitive reasons why, and I'm not going to bring them up here, but I mean, that's always fair to look at. Why does another school do so well and we don't? Nottingham has been generally in the middle between us and them. But we did do, Frank Markowitz, to his credit, did a wonderful job of looking at every small little aspect of the food service here, also in Stratford, trying to figure out what it would take to break even like Stratford. Frankly, the school board was gonna have no part of it. And so they didn't. And so we continued to lose money. But he had some answers, some very good ones. And I just wanted to mention that.
Right, thank you. Any other board member like to take this opportunity before we close it down? Okay, we're going to close our public comment session and move on to school board business. First off, in our packet, we do have some minutes to approve for May 18th.
Motion to approve May 18th minutes. Second?
Any discussion on these?
Yes. Just have to get back there. Starting at 405, but let me just get back to where it was, but I actually just noticed this is the paragraph before that too.
I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, I was mumbling to myself. Starting on page 12. Line 401 to 410. One thing in that is that it doesn't look like we ever approved the clubs committee, because it was just the motions that Tim and I made, or approved the clubs that the clubs committee had brought forward. But the other thing, that the meat of that conversation that is missing is that the $1,000 for the 8th grade advisor, the $750 for the 7th grade advisor, and the $250 for the Mara Vista line advisor were being taken out of the club's stipend, but being put into the regular budget.
Right, that money was coming out of the regular
Right.
budget, not out of the club stipend.
Right.
Yes.
So that meat of that, and that was the whole point of making those motions, was to make sure that it was understood that that money would be paid and that it would be coming out of the budget, not out of the stipend, or out of the regular budget, not out of the club's committees,
Yeah.
stipends money.
And it is worth mentioning that the clubs were approved 4-0, I believe, right?
Yeah.
That's something we should definitely have in the minutes as well. Yeah.
You're saying that those funds come out of the budget,
Yeah, for next year.
not out of the stipends?
Not out of the clubs.
Not out of the club's budget.
So
There's kind of a separate fund set up for clubs.
I don't know how to word it the right way. Do you know, Bob?
Remain in that club's?
No.
Okay,
Well, the money,
funding-
the money remains in there.
it does.
We're gonna find
Okay.
money for the stipend positions from somewhere
Okay,
else.
very good.
So it reads kind of funny. If you look like 405-46,
Yeah.
405-406, and it just needs to take out "and." So in other words, it says, to remove $1,000 from the 8th grade advisor line and include $750 for the 7th grade advisor line. If you take the "and" out, it would say, to remove $1,000 from the 8th grade advisor line
$750 for the 7th grade?
and
You need to
And the
remove
250.
include, not and.
Yeah, remove include, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I knew there was a word there. Remove include, and $750 for the 7th grade line. Motion passed. Later, Vice Chairman Hartford asked the teachers for advice. Oh, never mind. Second by Tim to also move the Merrill Vissel line of 250. From there, I do agree with Barbie, that it should stay in there, that we agreed as a board that the money would be found elsewhere to fund those 3 issues.
What's that? Okay. Any other discussion on these? Corrections? Issues? Okay, all in favor of the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 4 with 1 abstention. We also have non-public meeting minutes to approve.
Motion to approve non-public minutes from May 18th. Second.
Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 1 abstention.
Is that the one, just out of curiosity, that we voted to?
Seal?
Seal
No, that
again?
was from the previous
All
meeting,
right.
I believe. What's that?
You wanted to seal them, it didn't happen.
No, we sealed the ones from the meeting previous, so. Okay, moving on to the Assistant Superintendent's report.
All right, on page 17, you've got Mr. Rooning's report, and also right after that, some information that you requested on Right to Know, and I'd be happy to take back any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any comments or questions about these?
Probably did, but I can't remember what it was after reading the section 91A, 91A.
Yeah, I read this a couple times, and I somehow came to an opposite conclusion from what the lawyer did. But it seems like once something is received, it is a public record, right? Not, it doesn't have to wait for the meeting,
Except for
Except for
these
things that-
things, and that's,
Right. except for
I
the
think the
things, the
one-
exclusions.
there was like one of them that said something about monetary or something like that in here.
Well, there's a whole you're looking at the RSA,
Uh,
and there's a whole bunch of exceptions in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, is the
Yeah.
exceptions, and that's where I felt like that had come in. Which is confidential, commercial, or financial. Yeah, records pertaining to internal personnel practices, confidential, commercial, or financial information.
Yeah, what I took out of this is that for things that are covered by those exemptions, even if they're in the packet, they're still covered until they're released. That's how I read this.
Yeah,
at
oh,
least.
I'm sorry, I thought you were saying you took the opposite, but I thought that's what the lawyer said, until we had approved them, or until we had seen them.
So for stuff that is not exempt, I think once we receive them, it's a public record. So there's two different two different classes of information, right? There's exempt information and non-exempt information, right?
Right.
A non-exempt appears to become a record at time of reception by a quorum of the board, right? As opposed to at a meeting, right? So it seems like if it's in the packet and it's not exempt, it becomes a government record and is therefore public, and accessible by its law.
Just because they
Before
send
the
it out-
meeting, you-
Right, but just because they send it out doesn't mean that we've looked at it.
It says reception, right? Any written, like,
But just because it's in my
it doesn't say
email.
that. All it says is received by a quorum. You don't have to look at it, you just have to receive it. So,
I don't personally think this happens very many times
No, it
during the
doesn't.
course of the year, but, I mean, to me, the right way to handle this would be simply to ask Dr. Godomsky in the future, such a letter, bring it to us like he brought things
yes.
tonight.
And we've
To me,
we've
that would
talked
be
about
the
that.
right way to handle
Yep.
it and would resolve the issue.
Yep. Anything else?
That non-public is for that, we're gonna go in for that, right, for,
Yes.
Yes, we've got 2 situations for non-public tonight. at the end.
Okay. Seeing no more comments, we'll move on to the principal's report. So I think you're on tap for again.
Yeah, the principal's report you have in your packet from 22 to 30. And really the items that need attention, I don't know whether you want to do it now or under old business. We've got some discussions on cameras and schoology on there, as well as information on the steps.
So since we have an old business, let's just hold off and do it there, since we're
Okay,
discussing there
we
anyway.
can do all of that in old business then.
We do need to do the proposal by Ms. Legacy, fundraising request.
Yes.
Yep, yes.
Look at you. I motion to approve the, what was it called? It's the fundraising request. I read the whole thing, but, our Sonia program.
What page is that?
This is the second.
26.
26.
27, right? Oh, 26.
27 start, well, the
Right,
26
right.
is the letter, yeah. 27 is the benefits.
Yeah, 27 through 30.
I think my sister's school does this. It's pretty cool.
Want to take a look at it?
It'd be nice if you guys could explain what you're talking about a little bit. It makes it seem like everything is non-public. 'Cause
Okay,
you're reading
so-
this stuff and we have no idea what you're talking about.
The art teacher for the school wants to, and I would just read it. The Art Stonia program is where students' artwork is displayed digitally to parents through the Art Stonia website. Art Stonia is also a fundraising tool. Parents are able to view their child's artwork with permission, and they are able to purchase items with their child's artwork on them. Art Stonia gives a portion of the profit to the Northwood Art School curriculum to buy art materials. Is where she's
It's actually
proposing.
20% is what the
Really interesting program that I personally had no idea was going on. I think it's a great idea. That's the kind of stuff people
it's
in town need
20%
to
in
know
here.
about.
Is there a motion for this?
We did. The
Yeah, you
motion.
guys did second?
And I second that.
Any discussion on that? Sorry, I missed that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? Motion carries unanimously.
And just to highlight from Ms. Young's report, just upcoming events, June 9 is going to be Field Day, June 13th, second semester awards for grades 5 through 8. June 16th is the graduation, and June 20 is the last day of school.
June 16th is going to be a busy day with field trips and graduation.
It is going to be a very busy day.
Any questions about the principal's report? I think we'll come back to the suggested use of surplus funds, so we'll keep that on the docket. Okay, we have a few policies to do a first reading upon.
We do not.
We do not.
We can. Policy committee was supposed to meet today, and Scott had a conflict, so
Okay.
the policy committee hasn't actually done these yet. I know they went to the nurse, but we have not yet had a chance to discuss them, so
Okay.
if you would like to table them to the next meeting, I would appreciate it.
Okay, that sounds good to me. So all of them?
All of them.
Okay.
They were all the first aid ones.
So to the next meeting, the first aid ones.
Yes.
Okay.
Cash in the building.
A motion to table to the next meeting, sure. I can move that.
Sure.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
There's also cash in the building. That one's,
Yes.
okay.
Policy DM.
Yep, that's in there too.
So these are all policies that weren't not reviewed by the policy committee, so.
Correct.
yeah.
We're gonna meet before the next meeting, so we'll be all set by then.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Thank
All in favor of tabling these till next meeting?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That speeds things up. Superintendent's report.
All right,
Dr. Godofsky.
I'll start on page 45. You will see nominations for boys and girls cross-country, boys soccer, and girls soccer coach for your approval.
Motion to approve Amy Tazak, boys and girls cross-country coach, Peter Hygus, boys soccer coach, Mark Glad, girls soccer coach for the 2017-18 fall season.
That would just be the 2017 season.
Spring season, fall season? Fall season.
Policy.
Yep.
Second.
Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and I'll go to the personnel report that I handed out to each of you. First is a letter of resignation from Lindsay Nelson, your speech language pathologist.
Motion to accept the resignation of Lindsay Nelson with regret.
Second.
Any discussion on these?
Good luck to her.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Motion carries.
And also a nomination of Kate Bertonzini, ESY teacher.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on these?
Nope.
I assume this is within the salary.
Yes.
The budget we have set out for it.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
And next I have on page 49, you'll see a staff request.
Is that a non-public personnel?
If you're gonna have any kind of discussion on that, we probably should do that at the end too. So we could do that in non-public as well.
Thank you.
Do you have something, do you have a discussion?
Well, my biggest thing is, why is it coming to us? Do we need to make a decision on this? I mean, this is a personnel issue.
Yes, you do.
Okay,
So we should take that into non-public.
okay.
So we'll do that at the end. And just want to report that went to Co-Brown graduation on Friday night. Wonderful ceremony, had a terrific time. The weather even held out just long enough to get everybody in and out without getting wet. But a lot of very proud parents and proud kids, and they did a terrific job. So that was a lot of fun. And that's all I have.
Anybody have any questions for the superintendent?
There was,
Oh, no, I forgot, sorry.
I do, sorry.
Got it?
I was just curious, mainly because there was one statement on the bottom of it. Healthcare provider, so this is a big deal, $12. Already the cost of the healthcare provider cards. The cost of the cards is $5 each. The cost of the one-way valve is $1 each for a total of $12. The statement at the bottom of the line on purchase requisition is, this line will need to be overspent, these are not budgeted for. So I've never seen these. Do you have any idea what they are?
CPR. Yeah, so you gotta get the cards themselves for them to get certified, and
So
then.
is this new?
So
She hasn't done it in many years. I'm assuming it's Beth.
Yeah,
We
and
had
it's
this
a-
discussion, yeah.
it's a cost for the cards themselves.
And then the one-way valves.
I understand that, but I mean, is it
People don't puke
new?
all day.
I've never seen it, and is it something we should budget for? I mean, $12 is over
Yeah,
doing a
they
lot.
probably didn't have a line in the budget for that, so they're
So-
overexpending it.
Beth and I had this discussion also. It used to be that there were, when they did in-service days at the beginning of the year, or even throughout the year, Beth was given time to do recertification for the teachers, and there were many more teachers in the school that were CPR certified, and that was taken away. I don't think she told me when or whatever. So she's certified as an instructor and can do it, but it's just.
It's not the money. I just
No,
trying to
no, no,
find out
and
what
that's what it is,
I mean,
though.
it
So
doesn't
this
say
is-
Beth Benham here anywhere. It says Mike Brieger.
Yeah, I think it's for the coaches.
I mean, I'm not arguing the money. I'm just saying, is this something
Oh,
new?
I was hoping it
Never
was
run
for
into it
Beth then.
before.
Dang.
No, I think it's for the coaches.
Yeah.
So that'd be the CPR training for the coaches and get
And the
certified.
one-way valves are so you don't get puked on when you're giving CPR.
Okay, so, I mean, is that something we should, it's only $12. I was just curious. I don't guess I care whether it's in the budget or not. Thank you.
That's what you Mike certified to teach it then?
Maybe best one.
Yeah. 12? Did you have? No, you look like you wanted to ask a question.
Oh, no, I'm a very attentive person.
When he's here.
All right, seeing no more questions for the superintendent, we will move on then to our new business. We have a floor scrubber bid. Did you want to lead us through that?
Yeah, we have quotes for a floor scrubber. You can see on page 54 the comparison of those four bids.
Yeah, so, are they all the same scrubber, or are they, is that the same one? Is it, they're all the ice 20-inch auto scrubber, or they're all like different types of scrubbers from different types?
My understanding is that they're all the same scrubber, but the warranty is different.
Okay.
Because on the CCM supply company, there's like 3 different scrubbers, it looks like, with 3 different prices. There's the Orbital Auto Scrubber.
That one works the best, I heard.
I-20. And it's only $400 more. But then there's the I-20NB Auto Scrubber for $4,000, and then there's the I-20NBT Auto Scrubber for $5,175. So,
Nope.
Dr. Ganowski?
Yes.
I assume that Mr. Tom has looked at these 3 bids. Does he have a recommendation or a preference? I assume he would be the one to ask.
Can we find out if we don't?
Yeah,
know?
in which company?
My understanding is that these are very comparable floor scrubbers, and the difference was the warranty. But if the board would like more feedback from Tom, I can certainly get that.
So, but so what you're saying is that out of these 3 that did Tom put these 3 as his choices for us to choose out of these 3 companies?
I think that these were the 3 quotes that he got,
So
yeah.
he's saying he wants the one that's 5175. From CCM. And he wants that's what I'm assuming.
Where does it say that?
Well, because this is the bid summary. If this is what there's the bids, if CCM gave him 3 options, and obviously he didn't want the 5575 one, because if that was, because it's $500 more, $400 more, I'm assuming that he picked these ones to put on the bid sheet.
I think you've got your budgeted amount of 6,500, so any of these fit within the amount.
CCM has a 5-year warranty though, and the other one only has a 3-year warranty, and yet it costs more.
Hogwash.
Interesting.
And CCM is local.
Another
Manchester.
bonus.
Well, what we could do is we could approve up to, whatever, the 5,175, and let Tom choose whichever one he wants. Right, then we'd want to come back.
Motion to approve up to $5,200.
So, and,
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
I just don't know how you're coming up
Well, just
to
hold
the
on,
conclusion that you're coming up to.
1 second. Shane, make the motion, and we'll have a discussion.
Yeah. Motion to approve $5,200 for a auto scrubber.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Tim?
I don't understand how we're coming up with a conclusion that he wants the 120 MBT. And what is the difference between a 120 MBT on the top line and a 120 MBT on the bottom line?
One's orbital.
But isn't that a model number or not? So I guess I'm overtly complaining about the lack of information.
It says in the note that
Yes.
the orbital one doesn't clean as well as the other one. I don't know whose opinion that is, it doesn't say. I assume it's Mr. Tom's, but I could be wrong. What note? On page 54.
This is right here, global and.
Oh, I didn't see that, okay. Thank you.
There's a recommendation, main mechanical for 5,041.
Yeah, he said.
So,
Yeah, he says the other 2 are crap. So,
It says here all
yep, yep. So it looks like the recommendation is main janitorial. Which-
Well, we just
which
need
fits
to,
into
appro-
that.
we can approve the amount and
Yep.
let him make the choice.
Yep. Well, that's the motion we have. Is there any other discussion?
Well,
The motion was to approve up to $5,200 for,
oh, and you don't want that.
the motion was to approve up to $5,200 for a scrubber, and let Mr. Tom make his recommendation, or decision. Any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Tim, was that a yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Unanimous.
So this is out of next year's budget?
Yes,
So you
it's
guys think he's
budgeted-
gonna pick the
it's
middle
budgeted
one?
on next year.
That's what the recommendation is. If you look at the upper corner of the bid summary sheet, upper left corner.
So it won't be bought until July 1?
Yes.
Okay.
So if this is in the budget, we had to get bids by policy,
Yeah,
does it have to be
you should
approved by the
look it
board by policy? I mean, normally when things are in the budget, you can just go buy them, right?
Yeah, you just did, so.
No, I know we didn't, I'm just going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
the way we do things. All right. Committee reports. Any committee meetings in the past 2 weeks? Nope.
But I might have done something from the, an update from,
While you're waiting, I'll give a report on the education committee did meet just last night. We had, the Co-Brown Education Committee. We did an interview for a part-time science teacher. Worked on, long-term planning. Oh, and we had a presentation from, one of the teachers who went to London.
We have to report on the strategic planning committee.
We probably should do a report on that, yeah. You want to take that? I forgot about that one. Go for it.
Oh, yeah. Strategic planning committee met for the first time last Friday. We have,
Thursday, yeah.
thank you. Last Thursday. We have a couple of open slots still, but I think we had a productive first discussion. We're gonna send out a survey to students to see what they think is important and what they would like to see. We
Oh,
are sending back edits.
To everybody, right?
Yeah,
A survey's gonna be out.
well,
for-
we have two different surveys,
right.
one for students, one for the community.
Yeah.
And the committee is working on sending edits on those surveys back to our planner by tomorrow, I think, is that?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yep. And we will be, the strategic planning committee will be meeting again next Thursday, I believe.
Is it next Thursday? June 8th.
Let me
You
look.
guys are better informed than I am.
Let me look. I could be wrong.
Today's the first, yeah.
It's next Thursday.
Yeah, June 8th.
June 8th.
Yep. So, and I just want to remind everybody here, the meetings are open to the public, and swing by and check it out. Any other committees that we missed, didn't think of?
so I can't open it, but, they added the Lego club to the clubs committee, or added for the clubs. I don't know what the exact amount is, but, because I can't open this Google Doc on my iPad here. And then, huh?
Your crapple?
Yes. And added 5 additional hours to the 5/8 homework club, which I had said that they were probably going to do anyways. Excuse me. So we just need a motion, I guess, to approve the Lego club. Do we really need to know the stipend? Because as long as it's within the amount. If we do, I can ask and see if Lauren knows off the top of her head how much it is.
Does she?
If that's okay. Do you?
Oh, how much is it?
Without looking at it, I believe it's 750 for Lego Club. I can definitely probably pull it up on my phone. But that still leaves an additional $650 in that line still for another staff member to do a club.
Okay, and then we'll figure that out later.
Yep.
So I had a couple of big boxes of Legos last year, and the Lego club was not running. Did that make it to the school, does anybody know?
The Lego club was not what?
Running.
Oh, running.
Guess I'm asking the wrong people, but I know I had two big.
What'd you do with them?
I gave them to somebody to bring to school.
Oh.
I'll check into it, but, I mean, they were good-sized
Give 'em to us.
boxes. And I think I have some more I can get too, that are not being used.
Police investigation.
All
We
right,
can
so,
find out who the Lego club person is and bring them to them.
so what the clubs committee would like is an approval of,
Lego.
Lego club, and you say 4 to 5 more hours?
5 more hours.
5 more hours on the homework club?
Yep.
Can you make a motion to that effect then?
Motion to approve the Lego club stipend and for $750 and 5 more hours to
500.
500 for Lego?
Yep.
500 for Lego.
500. And 5 more hours for.
Thank you. I was like, well, where was I?
5 more
5
hours
more
for what?
hours. The homework club, the 5 through 8 homework club.
All right, I'll second that.
Second. Oh, you got me.
Any discussion on that? Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, motion carries.
When you're done here, could I ask another question about the scrubber?
Sure.
Can you play with it
Spent a fair
now?
amount of money 2 weeks ago on that scrubber, and we spent a fair amount of money again this batch of invoice. What's going to happen? So it's obviously running. What's going to happen to that? Where's the money going? I mean, I know it's a question nobody has an answer, but I would like to,
You mean the existing scrubber?
yes.
My understanding is the existing scrubber will still be utilized, but it's in such disrepair that I'm not sure it's gonna last, but I can get.
Or are we
I-
just gonna use it until it dies, or, I mean, we've.
I can get you a better
spent
answer than that.
Substantial money 2 weeks ago. I don't remember what it is, and some pretty good money this time, and, I mean, sooner or later, you have to figure something's nickel and diming you to death, you need to get rid of it.
I can find out where we're at with the scrubber.
I know it's a very old scrubber.
And that's fine, I approve the new scrubber, I just don't wanna keep spending money on an old scrubber, I'd rather put it on Craigslist and get a couple $100.
Okay. Old business, we have, just as bids for the steps. Or,
Yeah, I can
Camera.
take you down through those. The steps, you've got the bid sheet that I passed out for the steps, and you'll see no bids. We sent that by mail and email to those that were suggested to us. We posted it on our website and on the SAU website, and to this date, we have no response. Now, normally, we would advertise that in the paper as well, but with the quick turnaround that we were running under, you know, we did direct mailing and direct email and no response at this point, so. You know, we can do a more inclusive bid package and put it in the newspapers, but then we're gonna be out 14 days or more. So at this point, we're kind of dead in the water with that. The camera, any questions on the steps before I move on?
Well,
So what's our next step? Because can we approve the original amount without an additional bid?
Can we approve?
Because we had a quote, didn't we, from someone already?
Not for a complete replacement, no.
So you missed last meeting, and the discussion was brought forward by Ms. Hartford that we have been spending money in dribs and drabs on those steps. Is it time to just replace them? And so we wanted a bid to replace the ramp, the steps, and the whole thing. I mean, we really have, over the last several years, spent several times a substantial amount of money. They're just old, and so I think we need to get an earlier start and look at this for next year.
but wasn't there a concern that the bubblegum hallway ones were
Yeah,
more
they
of a
need to be,
risk?
they need to be fixed.
So if
or
that's,
repaired.
And I think that is a minor amount, could come out of this year's budget or next year's.
minor amount, less than 5,000, and we
Yes.
don't need to get a bid on it, we just
Yes.
need to get somebody in here.
We're supposed to get 2 estimates if it's below 5,000, and that's what we should do. But, I mean, in either one of the years, I don't think there's any obstacle to having that done.
Can you get with Jocelyn to let Tom know that we just need another estimate?
On the bubblegum steps.
Oh.
Yep.
And there was also, I know the estimate that he had also was to finish the front step as well. It had to do some additional work to it from that accident. Not from the accident, because that would have
Yeah,
come
that
by
was
insurance.
fixed.
There was something else, that was something with the front steps, I forget what it was.
I think there was if I remember right, there's, on the left side of it, it's pulling away from I don't know what they call it, an expansion barrier or something like that they needed attention to. think that's what kind of started the discussion at the last meeting about replacing the whole thing instead of putting additional money into them.
Basically said I'm sick of hearing about them every year.
So the camera quotes, we had talked last time about the doors and the cameras, about seeing if there's money in lines in the existing budget to do those. There was money in the lines to complete the doors, so that project is underway. The cameras, we really don't have any money left in any of the lines. It's about $1,522. I have a quote here. In light of the fact that we're not spending the money on replacement of those steps, I bring that back for consideration, the cameras, and also the other request that we had on Schoology at the last meeting. So what's the board's
these are-
pleasure on those two?
You can see these on page 22, back in the principal's report.
So, yeah, I'm all for the cameras.
Make a motion.
This is the quote on the cameras.
All right. Yeah, motion to approve up to $1,600 for Siamese cable to install 2 cameras.
Second, sorry. I was reading, sorry. Second.
Any discussion on this? Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
Okay, and then the last piece, like he said on page 22, was the Schoology for 5250 that was discussed at the last meeting.
You guys discussed about did someone explain what this was?
It's a learning management system that you can utilize for things like Google Apps and portals to be utilized to better organize educational systems for kids.
It means that kids have one login to get into all their stuff instead of 17 different passwords to get through. That's one of the benefits that she mentioned to us.
Sort of like having your apps on one page.
Yeah.
The problem I have with it is, it's not just a one-time buy.
Right.
Right.
It's $3,500 per
That's
year.
right.
Do you know if this Schoology does anything with like the email that we got from Mr. Robert about not going on something or other because it's taking kids to other, does Schoology do
Sorry, I
anything
don't-
with that?
I don't know, Barbie.
I suspect it doesn't have anything to do with that. But so is there a motion to,
Motion to approve $5,250 for Schoology for the 20, well, I guess that's the thing,
you buy it and then there's a licensing fee, is what it is.
Yeah, you would have to say the one-time fee of $5,250 for initial setup.
Right.
the
And
2017, 16, 17 budget.
and for additional years of $3,500 per year.
They'd have to find that in their budget.
That's correct.
We would have to find that in our budget.
I'll second that. Any discussion on this?
So I'm not gonna vote for it simply because it's, you know, it's another one of those things that we continually buy into that increases the budget. You know, it's, if we could just spend $5,000 and have it, I'd be more in favor of it, but.
Yeah,
it's another $3,500 and we keep getting into those. It's just a game and it's a very expensive game.
I don't know if she presented all of the benefits of it, really. I mean, she did a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know if it justified the cost, especially if you have to keep paying for it.
Right, my expectation was that this 3,500 would have to come out of the software line in next year's budget. And so we'd have to
Cut
cut something, right, cut something else in order to pay
And
for
that
that,
won't
right?
happen.
And
So then we're gonna overexpend if we don't cut
Or
something.
maybe there are some other subscriptions they can do without.
And I don't know if there's a benefit, because the kids that I know, that they use the same password anyways. It's not like they have to come up with, they have that one password and they use it for all of it, for every single app. So if it takes,
Which is-
what,
which
10
is-
seconds to log into an app?
Which is horribly insecure, just to let you know.
Yes, but they're kids, and, you know, that's. what
Don't
they
do that at home. If you do that, don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is money that we could be giving back to the town, and unless we can really justify, I don't see really the need for this. Just my opinion.
Any other discussion?
I'm up, I'm not gonna vote for either, but I'm just gonna say that I would like to know more information about it before I would.
Yeah, I agree with that. A better
More
justification. More
more
information, better
and-
justification.
And budget for it.
Yeah, well, they could,
Show the value.
they could bring it back for the
Pay
next,
$3,500 every year. I mean, that's a heck of a licensing fee.
yeah.
Yeah, show me the value, because I don't understand it.
I mean, if
At
you're
this,
saying
at
that
this
was-
point, I don't think we have enough information to vote intelligently on that.
Yeah, an alternative too is we could have them go back and prepare it for our next year's budget, right? Put it right in the budget if it's, you know.
That's something that they want.
Right, right. Rather than buying into a subscription through surplus. Okay. Any other discussion?
You're gonna keep your motion?
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion fails unanimously. Yep. Is there anything else with?
That's all we have on bids.
Okay. So we have up next a lease for the after-school kids program?
Yeah, the alternate
Alternate
route
route.
for kids.
Alternate route for kids.
You'll see the contract, there was some questions last time, and that has all been adjusted with the wording. You also had a question on the insurance policy, because their insurance policy goes through September of 17, and the question was, how do we know that they're going to keep that in place? We're identified, I touched base with Linda Osborne, we are identified on their insurance policy, so we will get notification when it's running out and notification that it's renewed, so we're all set with that.
Great.
Thank you. Motion to approve the lease for
Alternate route for kids?
alternate route for kids.
Second.
Any discussion on this?
For the 17, 18.
17, 18 here.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Can we not bid on, we can't vote on this food services contract, because it's gonna change the price, because we changed the school lunch price. Do we have to get a new one of these before we approve it?
It's a good
Yeah,
question.
and I don't think it's as time sensitive, you can certainly put it to the next meeting. I'll get in touch with Chris, that's why I asked that question tonight,
Yep.
that you've adjusted your cost by a nickel, so.
Right.
I think it would be prudent to, look it over, you've had a chance to look it over already, and then I'll get new numbers from him to see if they're adjusted, and we'll put it back on the agenda.
Would you not put it in our packet again?
What's that?
Would you not put it in our packet again?
I'll put the expense sheet in only.
Thank you.
How's that?
Ages.
So can I ask the board, that's our stance, we're staying at 235, you know, that the food service with what we talked about at the joint board meeting, that there was gonna be some ups and downs to
It
try to.
sounded like the SAU was gonna work out at the joint board meetings, is what I got out of that. Because
The Stratford was gonna come up and Nottingham, or come down, Nottingham was gonna go up, or.
Yeah, what we're gonna do is, we're basically a nickel off right now. And we're going to propose in the next Nottingham board packet that they come up 5 cents, because they're still going to be at, if I remember right, 230. So, and you're at 235, Stratford's at 235. So we're gonna propose it to them to come up and cover that nickel. If they decide to do that, then we're all set. If they decide not to do that, then we're just gonna submit it as it is, and if there's any penalty at that point, we'll bill back.
Okay, well, next up, we have some board goals that we want to, I hope to finalize tonight. Just to refresh everybody's memory on this, one of the board goals was complete strategic planning process by March. Goal number 2 was to oversee curriculum development, and we had said we were going to refine that with information. I don't know if we got the information last meeting. We got some of that information. Goal number 3, as a potential goal, was to pursue a grant opportunities. Goal number 4 is to regularly publish a school board newsletter. And goal number 5 was to support the accreditation process, which also I had marked to be refined.
Yeah, I think we need some like objectives on that, and some steps of like how we get there, you know.
So how do you guys want to do this? You want to go through and add such things one by one?
Well, I can tell you right now, for the curriculum, I'm taking these 3 goals that Dr. Kavanaugh recommended.
Okay.
I think those are, by the end of the 17-18 school year, complete a guaranteed and viable curriculum for math and ELA. And then it says from that point on, but by the end of 17-18 school year, complete a guaranteed and viable curriculum for math and ELA.
Do we want to put that as a board goal?
I think, again, we
Or is
need
it
to give the
objective?
direction to the administration. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob. That would be, our goal would be to give the direction to the administration to complete this.
Well, what I'd like to see is, I haven't seen the goals yet, so if you could.
Were you not here? You might not have been here. at a meeting
If you
here.
could send me the goals, I would like a crack at going down through and adding action plans underneath them and bringing them back to the board for review at that point, because I think that touches, Barbie, on what you're talking about. The goals are great, but how are we gonna get them done? What are we gonna do? So, if you'd like us to take a crack with building administration to attach action plans to that, what specifically are you gonna see us doing to make sure that those goals are met? And then bring them back to you for, feedback, additional revision, whatever you'd like to do with them.
Because if you look at the strategic plan, I mean, if we finish the strategic plan in March, we're like, yeah, we met our goal. But if we don't, we're gonna say, oh, where did we fail along the way? And if we have action plans and we look at our goals once a month, making sure that we're reaching those action plans, we're gonna meet that goal more likely than not. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I just have to press send. Is the board okay with that? We'll send it to the administration. We'll hear from them next meeting and take another crack at.
I'd like to see the 3 high points that Dr. Kavanaugh wrote about the recommendations.
You
The
wanna send those to
following
Bob?
tasks. Well, he should have these, they're in the minute. Yeah.
So
I'd like to see those, utilized, since she's been with us, so.
I just emailed you.
Okay.
So that's there. Then we'll put it on our agenda for next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, parking lot items. We have a cafeteria ceiling, a CIP plan. These are things that we need to wait to get our estimates back from the departments. We are due to meet with the selectmen maybe at some point this summer, and summer is coming, so maybe think about that. I don't know that we need to take any action on that right now.
Do we have any extra, what date of the week do the selectmen meet?
Tuesdays,
First Tuesday. I
first and
think.
third.
Is there
Do
any
we want to do
particular
it at a
agenda you want them
selectmen's
on?
meeting? I don't think we should do it at a selectmen's meeting because their agendas are super full almost all the time.
Well, we can get in
so-
touch with them and find out what they want to do too.
Yeah,
right?
if we
When-
want to set it up for a separate,
Yeah.
separate night.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. I mean, I think the first thing we gotta do is come up with, an agenda, like what is it we wanna talk about with them?
I don't think they'll want to do it a separate night, but we'll see. Because usually it's a very quick, we'll see if there's more things we want to talk about. But
Well, getting on their agenda as an agenda item is more difficult than you think. So if we want to do it, we need to plan for it, like a month, I would say at least a month out.
You okay? Yep. So why don't everybody think about what we'd want to talk to them about. I know the CIP plan probably is one of the things we'd like to discuss with them, I'd imagine, right? Other things that we are looking to get out of this? Or looking to give them input? I don't know.
I thought the big thing we were gonna talk with them about was the CIP plan and how to go forward with that and, that type of stuff. Wasn't that how that came about, Tim? Was that you had said that the selectmen used to come, or we used to meet with them on a more regular basis and it stopped?
Yeah, I mean, the last time my recollection is they came here. So it's our turn to go there. I'm having a brain cramp. What's the other program I brought to the board that we did, Nottingham does?
The impact fees.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the impact fees.
impact fees. That's what I thought
Yep, that's right.
we wanted to have a discussion with them about.
Do that. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, open up that line of communication too.
Yeah.
It would be good for both of us.
I think those are both, that's a decent agenda right there, so I can, maybe I'll try to get in touch with Mr. Breyer and see about getting on their agenda
July or
sometime in
August.
July or August, yeah, I mean, that may work for everybody here. So, that'd be a note for me. Oh, no, it's Mr. Wolf is the chair now?
No, Scott's still chair.
He is? Okay.
No.
No, did that change?
Rick is.
Oh, is Rick
Right,
now?
right,
Oh,
okay, so I'll get in touch
It's
with,
new. You should copy Joe, because he's the one that's gonna fit you in.
I'll probably just talk to him
Just
directly.
be easier.
Yeah, he can talk to them, that'll probably be easier.
Use the agenda
We are still
master.
looking for nominations for a grade 7 advisor and a grade 8 advisor. We don't
Well,
have
I
that.
think there was an 8th grade advisor that was on the, I just can't, it was it Miss Hashem?
There's one on there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just something to change, the clubs can be approved, but the people, like,
Right.
I mean,
Those
Okay.
are-
you just never know, you know.
Yep.
So is she interested in that right now? I mean,
She put in as a, she
The
put
eighth
it
grade
in as
advisor,
a form, as a
okay.
club, so as of right now.
so we haven't.
So I think we have an 8th grade advisor lined up.
Well, I don't, we haven't had an official nomination. It doesn't have to come from you, Bob, as a
Okay.
stipend, so maybe for our next meeting.
Okay, so it looks like there's 3 advisor positions we're looking for, grade 7 advisor, grade 8 advisor, and a Mero Vista advisor. So yeah, if we get
We already have our Mayor Vista advisor, but.
nominations for those, that'd be great. We'll leave it on our parking lot until that happens.
I'll check in.
Just a-
Anything we want to add to the parking lot?
No, sorry, I just got a question, comment to make.
About what?
Is the 8th grade, they go on that field trip today?
Yep.
They start today, right?
They're
Awesome.
there.
They're there?
They're there.
Cool.
Separated by a sword.
Sorry, it just popped in my head and just thought that people should know that.
They're there.
Anything we want to put on the parking lot that we didn't get to today, or we're good? All right, school board timeline for, it's June now.
It's hard today.
Don't see
That
anything.
comes the second one, right?
Exit interviews. Do we conduct exit interviews?
Yeah.
Outgoing staff?
Yeah, what we do, anybody that's leaving has an opportunity
300.
to meet with Linda Osborne, and she's the one that does the exit interviews. It's optional if anybody wants to take advantage of that, but we encourage them to do that.
Is there any way we could get a summary, perhaps?
Yeah,
About
what we try to do is after, I mean, we're doing them all throughout the year and
Sure, you're a
into the
school
summer,
cheer if
so
you did, that's true.
usually a good time to
I
do
agree
that
with
is
that.
probably September.
Okay.
So as soon as we get those all done, I'll make sure we do an update.
No.
You guys all set?
All set.
All right. Anything else in our June timeline here? Plans for summer work, plans for summer maintenance, these are all
Yeah, I think we're good.
nominations we've done, all coaching position, club positions we're doing, so looks like we're in decent shape for June.
Well, we haven't really talked about, and we can't because Jocelyn's not here, but plans for summer curriculum work and nominations, that usually comes a little
Once you hire a
bit.
curriculum director?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we haven't had one before and they've done curriculum work the last couple of summers. I mean, it would be nice if we had a curriculum director to, work with them, but
On that note, on curriculum director, I know that interviews will be done this week. Are we done with the first round of interviews?
I think they're still in process.
And
As
plan.
far as plans for the summer curriculum work, I'll touch base with Jocelyn and come back with more information on that.
Great.
And the maintenance and facilities renovations, are you guys meeting before our next meeting to come up?
We can,
Just to find out what,
yep, yeah, we can meet before July 1st.
Right.
I'll get with Tim to schedule.
The other thing on here is start to set bus routes, but we may want to wait on that.
I wasn't even gonna bring
Figure
that
out what
up.
we're doing.
My feet.
Okay.
Keith, I've got one other reminder, just a reminder that we've got a payroll next week, so we'll be in touch, shoot you out an email or a phone call, just to have you come in and sign payroll.
And I won't be available, so if you're available. Thank you, by the way, for covering that day that I got called into work. I appreciate that.
They call, I go, they email me, I never see it.
I invited him to my birthday party last year, and he hasn't.
Upcoming meetings, June 12th, we have a joint board meeting at the SAU office. June 15th is our next regular school board meeting. And then after that, July 6th. Is there any, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over by mistake, set future agenda items. Right now, for our next meeting on our agenda, I have, go over those policies. To approve the final food service contract, to attempt to finalize our goals again after feedback from administration. Is there any other agenda items that we want to add on there at this time?
Just, we gotta get those bids, right?
Bids for,
The lockers, was that something that was getting put in the budget? I wasn't here last week.
no,
Look at the budget for
Look at the
that.
budget for
yeah,
that,
we'll try
okay.
to budget for that.
One of the
And
things that Tim had pointed out is that he had had an audit meeting, and what is it that you had said about use it in that year, or?
The auditors, it came up in the audit committee meeting, and the auditors frown on spending money on something that isn't going to get used this year. And there's no way, if we spent the money, that we're gonna get them in and use them this year. So, and as Ms. Young said, she just wanted to put a marker in there that this is something that
needs to be done.
we should be looking at. It should come up in the budgeting process. It should be included in a CIP process. It's not anything that's going to be harmful if we don't get it done, but it is something that we need to look at.
All right, any other agenda items we want for next week?
Isn't there something else you just said?
No, all the bids, but then we're gonna get the estimates, so, instead to do the repairs, because it's gonna be too tight to figure that out.
Okay, reminder, get in touch with me up to 7 days before if we want to add something that comes up. Is there any closing public comment?
Just a quick reminder while you're looking at your July schedule and whatever, the budget committee meeting is set for July 26th, so that you don't plan a meeting with the selectmen, for instance, that night. It's a Wednesday.
Oh, I was gonna say, that's a Wednesday,
It's
they're
a Wednesday.
Tuesday, yeah, okay.
Right. So, but in case
Yeah.
they forget that there's a budget committee meeting.
Right, thank you. Anyone else?
Lee Cronin, fifth grade teacher. As a group of students came together to write a letter for the field trip to Boston. And I just want to be transparent with you, and I'm not sure if Ms. Young has passed this on or not. The 682 that you approved as a board was from the money that Mrs. D'Alessandro had said that would cost her to bring us to Boston. Unfortunately, and she has apologized, she said, I can't do trips to Boston. I'm short with a driver this year. So I asked Ms. Young for permission if I could reach out to other bus companies. And she said, yes, go ahead and get different bids, if that's what you call it. So we went with Mrs. Wimsett, first student, and for parents of fifth grade students, we're going to find a price of a dollar amount of $21 to go. And it's an amount we get to go, and they get to not be constricted with their time, so we can have an extended day and return to school at 4. However, they could only bring us in 2 buses. So the bus amount will be more, and I just want to be transparent with you. we were able to go. We just weren't able to go with a bus company that gave us the estimate amount that I gave to the board that night. So, okay.
Thank you.
So we approved the 682, and this is gonna cost what?
I shouldn't say.
$1,270.
So, are we gonna, after the public comment, are we gonna have a chance to talk about that? Or do you wanna talk about it
Board
now?
wants to, sure. Or it's up to the board. So,
I mean, my position is that nobody planned this, and I think the board should vote to pay for the difference.
So make a motion,
I'll make a motion that we pay for the, what's the number again?
$1,270.
Right.
$1,200, the entire amount for the bus, $1,270.
Second.
any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just caution with the 4 o'clock time
Which
because
field
of
trip?
graduation that night. Yeah.
They'll be back.
I'm sorry, just clarify.
It's just, yeah, that's
Just clarification, this is the field trip to
Boston.
Boston?
It's the
For
Freedom Trail.
the Freedom Trail, fifth graders, Freedom Trail. yeah.
And I don't want to do this next year, but it's not their fault that we have the issue that we have with the bus company.
Correct.
Is there any other public comment?
Lauren Dow, third grade teacher. So I just want to hit upon like the 8th grade, 7th grade advisor thing. So the 7th grade advisor will be put out, that hasn't been put out yet to staff, so that will be put out. But in speaking to the staff member that is currently on the form that they did fill out, just kind of, there's data being collected right now about how many hours actually go into putting together this 8th grade trip. This year it was Boston, but in discussions we've had with Barbie and the clubs committee, that if we are going to go to Washington DC, that's even more time, more fundraising, more hours that are put into that. We did cut the 8th grade assistant advisor position because I know we want a 7th grade advisor position. So Ms. Hashem has expressed she can't do this herself. So one person with 40 hours worth of work is $1,000, but we're putting data together right now, and we're having conversations with Ms. Young about how many hours are actually put into fundraising, all of that, and that's hours of being with the kids fundraising and
More than
paperwork.
40.
More than 40. So, and especially if you want to go to Washington DC, which, per conversation, that is maybe the idea is moving forward, right?
I haven't had that
We don't
discussion with
know.
anybody yet.
So, but we don't know. So there needs to be data collected on how many hours are actually being utilized for the 8th grade advisor, now that we've cut the assistant. So just kind of food for thought as we move forward. I'm not sure if we can get all that data together for your next meeting, probably. And I told Ms. Hashem to put it in maybe a letter form or something. But that is kind of where we stand with the 8th grade advisor. I know she won't do it by herself because it's a lot of hours, and she did have help this year with Ms. Tyler leaving for another position, or moving out of the state. So just kind of food for thought as we talk about that position in general. So thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comment? Any comment from the board?
I would just like to point out that in Ms. Young's principal's report, there was a very nice article from the forum about the robots on a roll at Northwood School. She put it in our packets, but just to make sure that people know that there was a nice article in there.
Forumhome.org.
What's that?
Forumhome.org.
Yes.
That's how you get there, I believe. All right. Anyone else?
I started there, kind of late in the year, but I'm in the going on the third week, so hopefully we'll be done before graduation. So I'm doing the 6th grade this year instead of the 5th grade. Speaking to the 5th grade teachers from last year, we both, made the assumption and the conclusion that it's better to reach the 6th graders at the end of the year, going into the 7th and 8th grade year. So that's been starting. So
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment session. I do believe we need to go into non-public under RSA 91A3:2C. So is there a motion to do so?
Motion.
I'll second that. We need to have a roll call vote in. Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. Jandeber?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Hartford? Ms. Gunter?
Yes.
And Mr. McGuinn is yes.
For special circumstances, to take three personal days that she is entitled to, as well as 2 additional days leave without pay. And that would be my recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who are we talking about, just so that it's...
Ms. Dow.
Lauren Dow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Shane.
Change it.
He didn't open his mouth.
Say.